If you've ever been underestimated by your own family, mocked for chasing something that wasn't part of their picture-perfect blueprint for success, then you'll understand why this story still burns in my chest. My name's Mason. I'm 27 now, but this started back when I was around 19, still living at home, fresh out of high school, and full of stubborn ideas that didn't fit the mold. I didn't want to go to college, and that made me the black sheep before I even knew what that meant. My parents, my dad especially, believed in two things: prestige and hierarchy. The more letters behind your name, the more respect you deserved. He came from a line of military men and engineers, and he liked things neat, structured, predictable. My older brother Tyler? He fit that mold so perfectly, it was like he was born with a resume stapled to his chest. He was already talking about law school in the 9th grade, had perfect grades, and wore button-ups to family dinners while I was still getting yelled at for leaving my hoodie on the couch. I didn't hate Tyler. Not at first. He was smart, sure. But it wasn't just that. It was how my family orbited around his ambitions like they were gospel. Every conversation at dinner somehow curved toward his AP classes, his mock trial wins, his SAT scores. My mom would say things like, "When Tyler's a lawyer, we'll finally be able to move into a nicer neighborhood," as if his success was a family investment. And me? I was a side note. A joke. Mason's still figuring things out. They'd chuckle when relatives asked. And then someone would make a joke about me flipping burgers or becoming a YouTuber, and I'd fake a laugh like I hadn't already started trying both of those things in secret. The thing is, I was figuring things out, just not the way they wanted. While Tyler was off getting tutored for the LSATs, I was grinding. I sold phone cases on Etsy. I learned how to run Facebook ads. I stayed up until 4 a.m. watching videos about drop shipping, flipping thrift store finds, starting affiliate websites, anything. I didn't make much at first. A few bucks here and there. But it added up. And I liked the hustle. I liked waking up and not knowing exactly how the day would go, but knowing I could make something happen. But to my family, it was all just a little side hustle. That phrase haunts me. It was the way they said it, like patting a toddler on the head for scribbling on the wall. "How's your little side hustle going?" My dad would smirk while sipping his coffee on Sundays. "Made enough to buy a gumball yet?" Tyler would throw in with a grin, not even looking up from his case study. My mom wasn't cruel, but she was dismissive in her own way, sighing when I asked her to stop using the guest room as her craft storage so I could take product photos, or reminding me at every turn that I could still apply for community college if I got serious. What really pushed the knife in, though, was how they invested in Tyler. I'm not just talking about emotional support. I mean full-on financial backing. My dad took on extra hours. They refinanced the house. My mom stopped buying new clothes for herself. It was all for Tyler's dream. I'll never forget the day he got into Columbia Law. They threw a party, balloons, catered food, a cake that said Future Esquire. My aunt and uncle flew in. People gave speeches. And me? I was the one who picked everyone up from the airport because you have the free time. They didn't even ask what I'd been working on. I had just crossed my first $5,000 month that week. No one knew. I told myself I didn't care, that I didn't need their validation, that their approval was cheap and I was playing a different game. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting. Watching them bend over backwards for Tyler while treating me like the household intern, yeah, it got to me. Especially when I started contributing in small ways, and they still didn't see it. I paid for our internet bill one month when my dad was short. I helped my mom sell some of her old sewing machines online and got her triple what she expected. But it was always shrugged off like luck or coincidence. Meanwhile, Tyler could sneeze in the direction of a textbook and they'd clap like he cured cancer. I remember one specific night that's burned into my memory like a scar. It was late, around midnight, and I was in the garage packing up some orders. I had a whole system set up, lightbox, printer, bubble wrap, everything. My dad came in, rubbed his eyes, and just stood there watching me for a second. I thought maybe, this was one of those rare moments where he'd say something encouraging. But instead, he let out a little chuckle and said, "Still playing entrepreneur, huh? You know, you should get some sleep. Real jobs start early." I just nodded, didn't say a word. But inside, something shifted. I stopped trying to prove anything to them. I went silent, stopped sharing, and I started dreaming bigger, not out of hope, but out of spite. They wanted to act like I was the family joke? Fine. But I was going to be the punchline that knocked the breath out of them. And that's exactly what started to happen. The The first real turning point came a year later, but not in the way I expected. Tyler came home for a break after his first semester at Columbia. The golden boy himself, with his expensive haircut and tired eyes and a girlfriend he didn't bring inside. Something about him was off. I noticed it. He wasn't as smug. He seemed tense, like someone who'd been punched but didn't want to admit it. He sat through dinner in silence, barely touched his food, and kept checking his phone like he was waiting for bad news. Later that night, I overheard him and my dad whispering in the den. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I froze when I heard one word: loans. Just keep it between us, my dad said. Your mother doesn't need to worry. We'll figure something out. We have to. You're the one chance we have. That word, chance, hit me like a truck. The one chance. What was I? A misfire? I went back to my room and stared at my monitor. I was pulling in nearly $9,000 a month by then, building out a brand, investing, hiring a VA. But to them, I didn't exist. I was a ghost in their narrative, just background noise while they poured water into a leaking cup. And that's when I decided I wasn't just going to make money. I was going to make noise. But before I could do that, something else happened. Something that shifted the dynamic more than I could have imagined. And it all started with a simple conversation over eggs and toast. You ever notice how silence can scream louder than words? That was my life for the next year and a half. After that conversation I overheard between my dad and Tyler about the loans, the desperation, the whole he's our only chance thing, I stopped hoping they'd ever see me. I went full ghost mode. No updates. No hints. Just grind. I worked like I had something to prove. Because I did. But not to them. Not anymore. To myself. I needed to see if I could really build something from nothing. And man, I did. I branched out from reselling into digital products, then into consulting for other e-commerce newbies. I launched a subscription box that took off faster than I was ready for. I learned the hard way how to manage inventory, hire people, fire people, reinvest profits, and deal with taxes that looked like riddles wrapped in nightmares. But all that time, back home, the story stayed the same. Tyler was making us proud. Tyler was our future. Mason, he's doing some online thing. That's what my aunt called it one Thanksgiving. Still doing your little online thing, Mason, she said, scraping cranberry sauce onto her plate like she wasn't shredding my dignity with a butter knife. I just smiled and said, yeah, it's going all right. Maybe you'll get a real job one day, she chuckled, nudging my mom like it was a harmless joke. My mom didn't correct her. And Tyler? He was glowing. Not because of pride, but because he knew the room belonged to him. The spotlight followed him like it was born there. But I noticed things. Little cracks. The way he kept glancing at his phone. How quiet he got when anyone asked about his classes. Once, I caught him alone on the patio during that same Thanksgiving, holding his head in both hands. He didn't hear me open the sliding door. I froze when I heard him whisper, I can't do this. But the second he heard me behind him, he straightened up, slapped on a smile, and said, hey bro, you still flipping socks or whatever? I laughed it off. Yeah, something like that. I could have said more. But what was the point? Things reached a boiling point that Christmas. It started simple like always. Family dinner. Fancy ham. Everyone seated. My mom went around the table talking about what everyone was up to. When she got to Tyler, she beamed like a pageant mom. Tyler just finished his second year, almost done. He's got interviews lined up, and we're so proud. He's really making something of himself. Then she looked at me. And Mason's still doing his business. I blinked. I run 3 companies now, I said, calm but direct. And I just bought a rental property in cash. You'd think I said I'd taken up juggling chainsaws. My mom's smile twitched. My dad frowned. Tyler chuckled and said, sure. Gotta love that Shopify magic. I stared at him. Actually, it's a self-hosted platform. But yeah, magic works too. That was the first time I pushed back. Not aggressively. Just not quietly. And it felt good. Until my dad cleared his throat and said, it's nice that you're having fun with that, son. But real stability comes from careers, not trends. That was when it hit me. No matter how far I came, they'd never see it. Not because it wasn't there, but because it didn't come from them. They didn't build me. They didn't understand me. And they didn't want to. I left early that night. Drove home to my condo. Parked my car, a new Audi I hadn't told them about, and sat in the dark for a long time, just thinking. And then, 2 months later, came the breaking point. It started with a text from my mom. Simple. Innocent, even. Can you come by this weekend? We want to talk about something important. Bring your financial records. That last part was weird. I replied asking why, but she dodged the question. Just said it was about the future and that they needed my help. I showed up Saturday, dressed casual. Clean jeans. Collared shirt. Just enough to look presentable without showing off. When I walked in, I saw them all seated, Mom, Dad, and Tyler. My gut twisted. Something was off. The tension in the air was thick, and no one made eye contact. My mom started first. Mason, honey, we've always supported both you boys, haven't we? I didn't answer. I just stared at her. My dad picked up. You've done surprisingly well for yourself. And that's great. We're proud of your independence. But sometimes, family comes first. Still no context. Still no answers. Then Tyler said it. Blurted it out like it was nothing. I need help with tuition. Columbia cut my aid, and I'm short. The loan options are a mess, and if I can't pay by April, I'm out. I didn't move. Just let it sink in. Okay, I said slowly. And my mom gave me that soft, pleading look she always saved for guilt trips. We were hoping you could help cover the balance. Just a loan, of course. We know you have savings. I stared at her like she was a stranger. You want me to pay for Tyler's law school? It's only $38,000, she said like she was asking for spare change. He's almost done. It would be such a shame if he couldn't finish. I laughed. Actually laughed. And then I looked at Tyler. He didn't look embarrassed, or grateful, or even apologetic. He looked entitled, like this was owed to him. Let me get this straight, I said, leaning back. You all spent years treating me like a charity case with a laptop. Laughed at everything I did. Ignored every win. But now that Tyler's in a bind, you want me to bail him out. Mason, don't make this about. My mom started, but I cut her off. No, I will make it about that. Because that's exactly what this is. You gambled everything on him. Poured your lives into his dream. And now that it's falling apart, you're looking at me like I'm the backup generator. We're just asking for help, my dad said, his tone sharp. Isn't that what family does? I stood up. Funny, I don't remember family helping me when I needed space to work, or time to grow, or just a single ounce of belief. You all made your bet, and you lost. I walked out, didn't look back. But the story didn't end there, because they weren't done yet. A week later, I got a call from my mom. She was crying, not because Tyler had dropped out, but because of what she did to stop him from dropping out. And when she told me, everything snapped. That was the moment everything changed. And it was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was war. Her voice cracked before she said a word. I knew that cry. It was the one she saved for emergencies, the kind she used when Grandpa died, or when Tyler broke his arm falling off the monkey bars in 3rd grade. But this time, it didn't land the same. I held the phone in silence, waiting for the performance to end and the truth to begin. Mason, she sniffled. Please. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't say anything. I took out a line of credit, she continued. In your name. Silence. I was going to tell you. She rushed, her words tumbling over each other. I just thought, it's just temporary. We needed something fast and Tyler had a deadline and I figured you'd understand, because you're doing well, and I hung up. I didn't slam the phone, didn't yell, didn't curse, just ended the call. Then I stood there in my kitchen, the early morning light streaming in through the window, touching everything around me like nothing had changed. But everything had. My mom, the woman who packed my school lunches and kissed my forehead even when she was mad. She'd stolen from me, because that's what it was. Not a favor, not a mistake. Theft. I pulled up my credit report, heart thudding, hands cold. There it was. A $40,000 line of credit, newly opened. Under my name. Maxed. Used to make a lump payment to Columbia University. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. My throat was dry. My vision blurred. And for the first time in years, I felt small again. Like I was 16, sitting in Tyler's shadow at the dinner table while he recited debate club victories, and my dad asked me to please chew with my mouth closed. I'd worked years to build something out of nothing. All that effort, all that late-night grinding, the constant self-doubt, the uphill climb, and they still saw me as a tool. Not a person, not a son, just a solution to their golden child's crisis. I didn't go outside for 3 days. Didn't answer texts. Didn't return calls. I think my assistant thought I was sick. Maybe I was. Just not the kind with a fever. My brain looped between rage and hurt, and this weird hollow feeling I couldn't name. Like I'd been gutted and someone forgot to fill the space back in. The betrayal wasn't just the money. It was the truth behind it. That even now, even after all I'd done, they still didn't see me as worthy. Just useful. On the fourth day, I called my lawyer. Hypothetically, I said, if someone took out a loan in your name without permission, he didn't even let me finish. That's fraud. I filed the report the next day. It wasn't easy. They called. A lot. My mom, begging. Tyler, furious. My dad, cold and venomous. How could you do this to your own family? He snapped over the phone. I just laughed. Funny. I was about to ask you the same thing. It was messy. There were tears. There were threats. But I didn't budge. Eventually, the investigation cleared me. The bank reversed the charges, and the debt was transferred back under her name. But the damage? That stayed. They stopped speaking to me after that. Tyler blocked me on everything. My dad told relatives I'd turned my back on the family. My mom left voicemails that went from teary apologies to passive-aggressive rants in the span of hours. I didn't answer any of them. I moved cities 2 months later. It was supposed to be a fresh start, but the truth is, I was a mess. I couldn't focus. My businesses started slipping. I'd sit at my laptop and stare at the screen like it owed me an apology. Orders backed up. Emails went unanswered. I let a partnership fall through the cracks. One night, I realized I hadn't spoken out loud in 2 days. That was the bottom. Not the betrayal. Not the money. Not the isolation. The nothingness. I had worked so hard to build something to prove my worth. And when the people I wanted to see it the most spat in my face, I crumbled. I didn't recognize myself. Until one day, I walked past a bookstore. A little independent shop tucked between a bagel place and a yoga studio. There was a sign in the window, Saturday Night Speaker Series, local entrepreneurs, from side hustles to success. I stopped walking, just stared at it. I don't know why it hit me so hard, but something in me cracked open. A small voice I hadn't heard in months whispered, "You're still building." I went inside. The guy behind the register was older, maybe mid-50s. Glasses. Polite smile. I asked about the event. He said it was casual, 5-minute talks, open mic style. Anyone could speak. That Saturday, I went back. I didn't plan to talk, just listen. But after the third speaker, something pulled me to the mic. My hands were shaking. My heart was trying to punch its way out of my chest. But I told my story. Not the whole thing. Just a piece. I talked about growing a business when no one believed in me. About feeling invisible. About losing yourself when your self-worth is built on someone else's validation. People clapped. Not because it was some motivational TED talk, but because it was real. Afterward, 2 people came up to me. One was starting a baking business. The other was thinking of launching a clothing line. They asked questions. They wanted tips. For the first time in months, I felt seen. That night, I went home and built a new site. It wasn't for selling products. It was for telling stories. Mine. Others. Stories about building when no one believes in you. Stories about hitting the wall and going through it anyway. I started a podcast. Started mentoring again. Started waking up excited. Not because I wanted to prove anything, but because I wanted it. That was the rise. Quiet. Slow. Not flashy, but steady. I rebuilt my income streams. Diversified. Made smarter investments. I started buying property under an LLC, cash only. I stopped trying to impress. Stopped explaining. Started living. And the best part? They still had no idea. No clue that I was now pulling in more per month than my dad made in a year. No clue that I owned 3 properties, 2 of which they'd driven past without realizing. No clue that I was lining up a surprise they'd never see coming. Then, one day, I got an invitation. Tyler's law school graduation dinner. It was formal. Fancy steakhouse. Custom invites. Name cards. I stared at it for a long time. I almost tossed it. Almost. But something in me said, go. Not for them. For me. Because this time, I wasn't the forgotten son showing up to clap for the family's golden boy. This time, I was walking in with something they never expected. And what I brought to the table that night, it changed everything. I didn't RSVP right away. In fact, I let the invitation sit on my desk for a full week. Gold foiled edges, raised black lettering, Tyler's name printed in bold. The steakhouse they chose was upscale, the kind of place with valet parking and waiters who pretend you didn't just choke on a $60 filet. Family only. The card read. Like an inside joke, I was finally being let in on. Except I knew better. This wasn't about inclusion. It was a victory lap. A spectacle. A reminder that Tyler had crossed the finish line in the race they all thought I quit. But I hadn't quit. I'd just run a different marathon entirely, and now I was about to lap them. For days, I debated whether to go. Then I made a call. Not to my parents. Not to Tyler. But to my real estate attorney. I want to expedite the deed transfer, I told her. I want it in my hands before the 17th. She asked if it was urgent. Extremely. I'd bought a house 2 months prior. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath stunner in a newly gentrifying neighborhood just outside the city. Not for renting. Not for flipping. I bought it for one reason. To drop the paperwork on that dinner table like a tactical nuke. But I wasn't just there to flex. No, this had to be precise. Surgical. The kind of revenge that doesn't yell or gloat, but whispers just loud enough to echo forever. I didn't tell a soul what I was planning, but I did prepare. First, I got a new suit. Tailored. Not flashy, but sharp enough to make my dad pause before commenting on my appearance. I updated my haircut. Shorter, cleaner, something that said CEO, without trying too hard. I even traded in my watch for a sleeker, minimalist model. Let them look closely. Let them wonder how a side hustle kid was outdressing the new attorney in the family. Then I printed the deed. Single sheet. Heavy paper. My name, front and center. Paid. In. Full. But that was just the prop. The real show was in the silence I'd been perfecting for 3 years. Silence that said, I don't need you to know what I've done, but I want you to find out. Still, the setup needed more than just me showing up with a smug grin and a folder. It needed the right timing, the right audience, and most importantly, the perfect line. So I practiced. In front of the mirror. In the car. Even once in the elevator of my building while a woman with a Pomeranian looked mildly alarmed. I wanted it to land with weight. Not cruelty, but finality. Something that said, this chapter is over. I win. As the date approached, I started getting the pre-show signals. A text from my mom. So glad you're coming. Please be on time. And maybe don't bring up business stuff. I smirked. Business stuff. As if my entire life was a novelty act at a dinner table they'd reserved for applause-worthy professions only. Tyler texted too. Short. Cold. Hope you don't make this weird. I didn't respond. The night before the dinner, I barely slept. Not from nerves, just anticipation. The kind that prickles in your fingertips when you're standing on the edge of something big. By the time I pulled into the steakhouse's circular driveway, I was ready. The valet took my keys with a polite nod. I stepped into the lobby, holding nothing but a small black folder. My heart was calm, steady. It didn't feel like walking into an ambush. It felt like walking into court, and I'd brought evidence. The hostess led me to the private dining room in the back, where the walls were lined with wine bottles, and the lighting was soft enough to hide side eyes. There they were, my parents, dressed to the nines. My aunt and uncle, my cousin Rachel. And at the head of the table, grinning like he'd just been knighted, sat Tyler. He stood when he saw me, arms out. Look who actually showed up. I shook his hand. Wouldn't miss it. His grip lingered, like he was trying to read me. I let him. Let them all wonder what I'd come to say, or not say. Dinner started with small talk. The usual. Tyler's internships. Bar exam plans. My dad threw in a comment about legacy and how proud they were. My mom dabbed her eyes twice. Once after telling the waitress her son was about to be a lawyer, and once after recounting how hard he worked to get there. I smiled through all of it. Answered politely when asked how my little businesses were going. Said things like, busy year, and lot of growth, and keeping my hands full, without elaborating. Let them fill in the blanks. Let them guess. Then came dessert, and the moment I'd been waiting for. My mom raised her glass and clinked her spoon gently. Before we dive into cake, I just want to say how grateful I am to have a son like Tyler. He's exceeded every expectation. He's made us all so proud. And tonight is about him. Everyone clapped. Even I did. Then I reached for my folder. Slid it across the table, deliberately, casually, until it landed right in front of Tyler. He blinked. What's this? A gift, I said. From me. My mom leaned in, eyes already misting. Mason. But she trailed off when Tyler opened the folder. He stared. His mouth opened slightly. Closed. What is this? He said, voice lower. It's a deed, I said, voice calm. To a house. Bought it last month. Paid in full. The room went quiet. You could hear the clink of someone's fork hitting their plate. I leaned back in my chair. No mortgage. No partners. Just me. Tyler didn't move. My mom's smile froze mid-expression. My dad's jaw twitched. Then he whispered something I'll never forget. You weren't supposed to beat him. There it was. The truth. Not wrapped in excuses. Not softened by family code. Just raw. I looked at him. Not angry. Not smug. Just done. I wasn't racing, I said. But maybe you were. Nobody spoke. My aunt sipped her wine. My cousin looked away. Tyler sat frozen, his hands still on the folder like it might vanish if he let go. I stood up. Congratulations, Tyler, I said. Truly. It's not easy. I hope the job offers come pouring in. He didn't answer. I turned to my parents. Thanks for dinner. Then I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't smirk. Just left. But as I stepped into the cool night air, a strange sense of peace settled over me. Not because I'd won, but because I didn't need to anymore. Still, the fallout? That came later. And it came hard. I wish I could tell you that after that dinner, everything went quiet. That Tyler sent a thank you text. That my mom called the next day, crying and apologizing. That my dad finally said he was proud of me. But that's not how people like them work. They don't absorb humility. They absorb it like water on a greasy plate. Briefly, and then it beads up and rolls right off. I woke up the next morning to a text from my mom. It wasn't long. That was cruel, Mason. You made a happy night about you. That's all it said. No mention of the house. No acknowledgement of what I'd built. Just a reminder that no matter what I did, I'd always be cast as the one who ruined their narrative. But that's when I realized something. They didn't hate what I did. They hated that they couldn't control it. They hated that I slipped through their fingers and came out the other side not bitter, but better. And once I realized that, something in me settled. But I wasn't done yet. Because while they tried to box me out of their legacy, they never realized I was quietly building my own. The revenge? It wasn't the deed. It wasn't the walkout. It was what came next. A few weeks after that dinner, Tyler updated his LinkedIn. He'd accepted a job at a high-end corporate law firm downtown. The caption was pure Tyler, humbled and honored to begin the next chapter of my legal career. Couldn't have done it without my amazing support system. Support system. I laughed when I saw it. I knew what he wasn't saying. The firm was competitive, but it wasn't the dream firm. Not even close. Word had already trickled down from some mutual connections in the startup space. He'd tanked his first round of interviews at 2 top firms, and one had passed him over because of lackluster interpersonal skills. Ouch. But I kept watching. Because I wasn't done. Remember the podcast I'd started? The one I thought would just be a small outlet? Well, it wasn't small anymore. A few of my episodes about self-made entrepreneurship and being underestimated had started gaining traction. A clip even went mildly viral on TikTok, landing me a flood of new subscribers and a guest spot on a bigger show. I told my story. Didn't name names. Didn't throw my family under the bus. But I told the truth. About being ignored. Dismissed. Written off. And about coming back stronger. It resonated. Comments poured in. DMs from people who'd been through the same thing. Some even recognized bits and pieces, enough to connect the dots. Including someone I hadn't heard from in a long time. Rachel, my cousin. She messaged me a week later. I watched your interview. Just wanted to say, I always knew you were more than they gave you credit for. We started talking more. She told me about the whispers going around the family. About how, suddenly, everyone was very curious what I did for a living. How my aunt had found my business Instagram and accidentally liked 3 posts in a row. How my dad tried to brush off the house thing as Mason investing early with a little help, until someone pointed out the deed listed no co-signers. But the real play? That came months later. By then, I'd expanded again, launched a startup incubator focused on underdog entrepreneurs. People without connections, trust funds, or LinkedIn family trees full of Ivy Leaguers. I gave them resources, capital, a community. I called it Second Sons. Yes, I did that on purpose. We went live with our first major campaign 6 months after Tyler's graduation. One of our early partners? A boutique law firm that handled all our IP contracts. They were sharp, efficient, honest, and small enough that they were looking to hire a new associate. I didn't do it to be petty. I swear I didn't. But when I saw the applicant list and noticed a familiar name halfway down, Tyler Bennett, I didn't delete it. I just forwarded it to the hiring manager with a note. I've worked with his family before. Proceed as you see fit. That's it. No lies. No sabotage. Just the truth and the space for it to catch up with him. He didn't get the job. I never followed up to ask why. Didn't need to. But what happened after that? That was the real fallout. My parents showed up unannounced one day. I was sitting in my office, finalizing a deal to acquire a small e-commerce brand, when the receptionist buzzed me. Mason, there's a couple here asking for you. Says it's your mom and dad. I nearly laughed, but I told her to send them up. They walked in looking smaller than I remembered. My dad's shoulders hunched in a way I'd never seen. My mom held her purse like it was armor. They didn't sit. My dad cleared his throat. We wanted to talk. I waited. My mom spoke next. About Tyler. I stayed silent. He's struggling, she said. He's not adjusting to the pressure. The jobs haven't worked out. He's different now. Not himself. And I said. My dad's jaw clenched. He hated asking for anything. Always had. We thought, he said slowly, maybe you could talk to him. Help him. You've got connections. There it was. The full circle. The same people who once mocked my hustle now wanted me to reach down and pull their golden boy up. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I stood, walked around the desk, and looked my father in the eyes. I tried helping him once, I said. You all made it very clear he didn't need me. We were wrong, my mom whispered. We know that now. I studied her face. Saw the cracks. The regret. Maybe even shame. And maybe I should have offered a lifeline. Maybe I should have said, of course. I'll call someone. But I didn't. Because Tyler had never once apologized. Never once admitted the loan. Never once asked me directly. Not even after they got caught forging my name. So I said something else. Something final. I spent years trying to earn a seat at a table you all built around him. But I built my own now. He's welcome to apply for a seat, just like everyone else. My mom's eyes welled up. My dad's face darkened. But they didn't argue. They just nodded, turned, and left. And as the door shut behind them, I felt nothing but clarity. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need revenge that came with rage or screaming matches or dramatic slaps across dinner tables. I got what I wanted. I built something real. Something lasting. And when the people who once mocked me came asking for help, all I had to do was tell the truth. Because the best revenge is living the life they told you you'd never have.